Hey guys, my name's Action Jackson. For those of you who don't know me, I used to be a shoutcaster for a lot of games. I work in the esports industry, and something that definitely no one knows really is that I'm actually in the Artifact closed beta. Obviously, a lot of people have been talking about their closed beta involvement. We can't talk about anything that hasn't been revealed, but we can talk about what has been revealed, and we can analyze what has been revealed. And seeing as I have, at this point, in excess of like 300 hours in the beta, I figured something that could be interesting to do is actually take some of the gameplay from PAX, which a lot of people have been analyzing on YouTube, but no one who's actually got, more than 6 or 7 games in, and basically analyze it from the perspective of an experienced player. Now, again, to reiterate, I can't share anything that hasn't been shown. So there might be, for example, like weird things in the decks, just because of the way the PAX decks were constructed, that aren't super reflective of the metagame, for example, that has developed amongst the closed beta testers. And at times, it might seem weird when I talk about a play and you're like, that seems super counterintuitive. Some of the heuristics that I've learned from playing in the closed beta won't apply here, so I'm going to try really hard to avoid those things, not because it's sharing any new information, but because like the full context of the analysis I'm doing won't be easily understood in the limited context of what has been shown so far. But yeah, I'm going to try and avoid those things and just make it super cut and dry, talking about what's been going on in the PAX game so far. For this first video, I'm just going to look at, I searched on YouTube, Artifact PAX, picked the first VOD that I saw. I'm going to look at the first game of the first VOD that I saw. So I've actually not seen this game before. I'm going to be analyzing both players rather than just one. Something I'm interested in, if people enjoy this, is whether in the future they'd like me to conceal one player's hand and just analyze one perspective as if that player was playing, or if they like the fact that I'm analyzing two players. And also, if you're one of the players that was at PAX, something I'd be really happy to do is actually have you on the show and go over your gameplay with you, so I can kind of challenge your assumptions about maybe plays that you were making, or why certain plays are good and bad as you perceived it. Because I think it's very easy in a game as deep as Artifact to develop very rigorous, I don't know if people will be familiar with this term, but first order optimal strategies. So clearest example of this that I've heard is in a fighting game, there might be a really easy combo to execute, and when you're playing against a bunch of scrubs and people that haven't played the game a lot, or your brother or whatever, you just do that combo again and again. It's very low skill input, but seems to yield really good results all the time. And those things are totally valid. So for example, something that I've seen a lot of analysis of is the concept of a dead lane, right? The idea that pretty early in a game of Artifact, one lane becomes quote-unquote unwinnable. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend your hero deployments in that lane, because that lane is a dead lane. You should be spending those valuable hero deployments in other lanes. That's a very sensible first-order optimal strategy. However, the nuance of Artifact kind of dictates that that is not always correct. And so, again, there might be some of you guys out there who were at PAX who feel like you've discovered things about Artifact, and you have, in the context of that very limited scope of inexperienced players. But what I'd like to be able to try and do is help you understand how maybe some of those heuristics you think you've learned aren't necessarily the case as you look at the broader strokes of the gameplay. So without further ado, also, I don't know if I'm going to use this a lot, but something that I'm going to try and do is use telestration to help illustrate some of the points. So I have the ability to draw on the screen, and I will try and highlight where plays could be through that to make it more visually clear to you guys. Again, if it's not something that's super useful to you, please let me know. It might just be annoying. At the very least, I like this cursor thing. I can show you where I'm looking. All right, let's hop into game 1 of day 2 of PAX. Okay, so I'm just going to pause right off the bat, talk about the decks that the players are playing, talk about the deployment that we've seen. Cool thing, by the way, I don't know if anyone's noticed this yet, but up here in the top, where you see the hero portraits, even if you're not looking at the lane, you can see if a hero is going to die or not, because if they are going to die, there will be a X on the portrait. So we can see immediately, even though we have yet to get the greater context of the first round, that no heroes have been deployed in such a way that any of them are dying prior to effects being played. So, looks like the 2 decks that are being played are the Econ Ramp deck, that's the player in the bottom here who is the challenger, and then Sir Action Slacks up here on the top is playing the red-blue control deck. The red-blue control deck is definitely the deck that seemed to perform best for most of the challengers and also for the champions at the event, although most of the champions have said so far that they think the green-black deck was the strongest one. I'm a little on the fence as to whether or not that is true, especially in the context of the champions only having 30 health on their towers as a handicap. I'm not totally sure I agree that the green-black deck is actually the strongest. I think it has some of the most punishing effects. So, for example, Truth to Power, Coup de Grace, these are effects that are very, very useful in a game with inexperienced players, because let's say someone doesn't play around them and only commits one hero to a lane, you can use those effects to totally shut them out. That is obviously super good. I think that the win conditions / raw power of the blue-red deck, assuming that you are playing, with some level of experience, can actually outweigh that, and there's a number of cards that I would consider somewhat dead cards in a lot of situations in the Econ Ramp deck. That they're kind of skill testing. I think Divine Purpose is a good example, right? Like, I know a lot of people played that card very badly at the tournament, where you make a unit immune permanently. So, enough chit-chat. Looking at the boards as they stand here in the first lane, neither player has a particularly good play that they can make. There's not a lot going on here. Ventriloquy is in fact the only live card between the 2 players. Potentially, considering the fact that this is a Luna and not another blue card, it might be worth actually playing Ventriloquy, which is here. In case you guys don't know what that card does, I'll put it up on the screen, but it taunts a unit. Potentially, because of the fact that this is a Luna and not, or rather, because Luna benefits from sticking around compared to a lot of blue heroes, it might make sense to Ventriloquy this creep. The reason for that is that it will actually extend Luna's life by a whole turn. As it currently stands, she's going to take 4 this turn, 4 next turn, and as a result of that, die after 2 turns. That being said, it is valuable to kill your blue hero on turn 2 sometimes. I think some cards have been revealed so far that illustrate that. I'm not going to get into it too much, though, because that's a little borderline. So, let's keep going here. Players taking their time. So it looks like Slacks decided not to go for the Ventriloquy play. I think that's definitely fine. Pause again real quick while we take a look at the second lane for the first time here. Something, by the way, that I think would be useful for these games in the future is if right at the beginning, first thing we look at is the wide view. Hopefully in future coverage we can get that done. Okay, so lane 2 is going to have Phantom Assassin and Bristleback in it. Good news for the challenger is that Phantom Assassin didn't spawn in front of Bristleback. That would have been really rough. No cards to deal with that situation. Bristleback, one of the few heroes that doesn't die to Phantom Assassin on turn 1, considering she hits for 10, which is a huge amount, but he actually has 12 health. There's no access to new orders on the side of Sir Action Slacks, so he can't change the combat target, make anything happen here. Not much going on. I'm just going to skip on to the next turn. Okay, Final lane, again, nothing playable, but let's just take a look at what's going on here. Rick's just getting in for 3. Pretty uninteresting. What I will say, though, is that because the next hero coming up is... Who is that? Oh, Riley the Cunning. So Riley the Cunning is the next hero coming up for the Challenger. That is kind of a rough play in all but the left lane, so keep that in mind. Prior to minions spawning, that's what you can analyze here, because the red heroes killed both of the creeps in front of them. Good odds that Riley, who's very fragile, will deploy automatically in front of those. Rick's being in the first 3 heroes is a pretty interesting / rough situation for the green-black Econ ramp deck. This does mean that it's very easy for Sir Action Slacks to find a solid lane to put his blue hero in on turn 2, because Rick's is not threatening in the slightest. Also worth noting here, because of the way the creep spawned, neither player has 3 gold. They're both on 2. Can't buy anything for 2, at least from what we've seen so far, so not super useful. Alright, let's take a look at the way these creeps and heroes are going to deploy. So, as it currently stands, we have 2 creeps, both deploying in the right lane for Sir Action Slacks. We have a split in these 2 lanes. This is pretty interesting in terms of where Riley should go and where Zeus should go. There's a lot that you can talk about here. If Sir Action Slacks decides to play Zeus in this left lane, which it looks like he's going to do, it could spawn either here, here, or here. The reason being that this creep is going to spawn either here or here, because there's no place for it to go that directly conflicts with a placement that's already there. This is pretty good news in... Sorry, Zeus could spawn here, here, or here. I forget if I put that last one in. This is the one I want to talk about that's most interesting. So if the melee creep here spawns like this, and Zeus goes over here, this is actually a really bad lane spawn for Zeus. The reason why it is bad is, ideally, you would like for it to spawn neighboring the Lycan. The reason you'd like it to spawn there is because you have Ventriloquy in your hand. As a result, you can taunt away from Luna, giving her a free hit, which means that they trade on the next turn, the Lycan and the Luna, assuming that no gold is gained and no effects are played, or items. And Zeus doesn't really get to do anything interesting if he spawns here. On top of that, if you consider the deck lists that the players both have, there's not a ton of good 4-mana plays in blue, and so most likely Sir Action Slacks is really only going to have access to this Ventriloquy as a solid blue card. Maybe he gets Tower Barrage, but that doesn't do a lot in this lane either unless the Luna Ping hits here. So the number of ways in which this Zeus being played in left lane can be utilized is pretty low, right? And on top of that, something that many people have correctly assessed is that, you know, typically a good heuristic to think about is that you don't want to play 2 cards of the same color in the same lane if you have a reasonable ability to play one of them somewhere else and diversify your openness to mana types. The fact that Sir Action Slacks is playing this in this lane isn't the end of the world. He does have, you know, greater odds of landing here or here than he does of here, just because that's 2 possibilities and that's 1. But it arguably doesn't accomplish that much, and it certainly doesn't win him a lane as effectively as playing Zeus in lane 3 does. Now, taking a step back and looking at the challengers play for a second, it makes a lot of sense for them to play their black hero here, even though there is a chance that it spawns in front of Keith. The reason being that because there's 2 minions being played here, and the read that I would make is that Zeus is going to go in the right lane, that actually means there's going to be 4 total played things in the right lane, Keith, 2 minions, and a Zeus, if you're making that read. And so the chances of Riley spawning directly in front of Keith are not that bad, plus the upside is that maybe you kill the Zeus, which would be really good. So let's see how our challenger actually decides to play their Riley. Interesting. Okay, so Riley's going to go in the left lane too. This might have just been a good read from the challenger. Assuming that the challenger is just looking to win a lane early, this is also a reasonable play. Obviously, there is a chance, if you play it in the right lane, that it goes very badly wrong and goes in front of Keith. So the most consistent way of like immediately gaining value out of Riley and not having a wasted turn with her, or him, not totally sure which, is to play it in the left lane. Like, this is the most obvious, effective place to play her if you're just looking to gain immediate value, and you're not looking to slow down one of the other lanes from Sir Action Selects. But, again, if she were played here, okay odds that you kill a Zeus, decent odds that you kill a minion, has more of an ability to stop anything from getting out of control, is essentially where I'm going. But this is not a bad play, especially considering that Zeus got played here. It has a huge chance to gain upside, which is nice. And it also makes the board wider, right? It makes this a 4-unit board rather than a 3-1, which means the chance of Zeus being played adjacent to the Lycan, and therefore being able to taunt him away, is lower. So it's going to possibly work out pretty well depending on how pathing cards go and the specific deployment of the unit. I know I'm going into a lot of depth about the decision making here. This might be too much for a new player, so please in the comments let me know if this is too much, because for the next one I can definitely tone it down a little bit. There's always a lot of decisions to be made in Artifact though. Wow. So that was a pretty solid deploy. I'm actually going to pause here so we can see the full board real quick before we head in. The way things ended up being deployed is about as good as they could have been for Sir Action Slacks. You definitely wanted Zeus to be deployed adjacent to Lycan. You also really wanted Lycan to not get a unit here. So he's only getting half access to his passive, although with the 3 Savage Wolves in hand, there's a way for him to turn that on. And also, if pathing goes like this, on a Savage Wolf here, the taunt here doesn't do anything to save Luna, because you're going to have 3 attack from the Savage Wolf plus 2 from Lycan going into Luna, so no way of saving her there. Not a big deal if that happens, but it is worth noting that this Ventriloquy play could be made worse as a result of that. Looking at the mid lane, obviously nothing spawned there, so nothing super interesting. This not having any pathing here is unfortunate. This not here, unfortunate for the respective players who'd like to be getting a kill. Although, with coup de grace in hand, getting a kill onto PA this turn is actually not great, necessarily, because it means that coup can be active in whatever lane it needs to be on turn 6 mana, turn 4. Whereas this arrow would be more unilaterally good, because there's no particularly punishing card without an axe on 6 mana that has been revealed that the red hero could utilize a deploy on 6 mana with. And finally, in the final lane, this is pretty okay. I'd say that it's good that this creep spawned here rather than here for the challenger. Typically, if you're in a lane where both people spawn a creep and one spawns in front of a hero where it's going to die, and then the other one spawns like adjacent like this, that provides the most long-term value, because your creeps are going to build your board wider and wider uncontested. And this creep is just guaranteed going to die to the 6 attack by Keith. So it's actually a good thing that you're taking 6 here, because you're probably trying to play a longer game, especially with the Econ ramp deck. Although you're against control, so keep that in mind. You also have a handicap, so it helps. Alright, on to lane 1. Okay, so the draws are No Accident and Truth to Power, as well as Tower Barrage, and I didn't see what the other one is, but it doesn't matter because they're all too expensive anyway. This is interesting. This actually makes Ventriloquy and Tower Barrage more important, because if No Accident goes here, the 4 damage from the creep will end up killing Zeus. So it's good that there's a lot of ways of turning that off. Ventriloquy is a really awesome play this turn. Onto the Zeus. It keeps, in theory, both of your guys alive. It kills this because of Zeus perk, and makes it so that Savage Wolf, if you play first, which currently the challenger has initiative, so if he's smart, he's just going to play the Savage Wolf here. But currently, if Sir Action Slacks were to be given the initiative, use Ventriloquy, it would force Savage Wolf to be played here, which is just not super good. So let's see what ends up happening. Probably one of these Savage Wolves comes down here or here. This is a better spot for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Ventriloquy here and a Pathing card here means that Luna still dies. Secondly, you get access to the Lycan passive if you play the Savage Wolf on the left. Alright, solid play. Doesn't path the way that he would like. Not a big deal, though. And Tower Barrage is the play. I'll be interested to see if he goes for Ventriloquy too. That's something we haven't discussed yet. I think that is not bad. Yeah, I like that. This also means, because he played the Tower Barrage to deal damage to the Lycan, that he's able to make it so that any random creeps that spawn are going to come into either of these two spots, which is actually great, because a 2-attack creep does not kill either of these two heroes. So a very reasonable first lane of turn 2 for Sir Action Slacks. I would not say, though, that this went poorly for the challenger by any stretch of the imagination. He was able to develop 14 damage on a handicapped 30 health tower, develop a Savage Wolf that's not going to die and therefore grows. Especially important that its health grows, so Luna can't kill it. It's kind of cool. Another Tower Barrage draw next turn could be bad news in this challenger lane. So if I'm the challenger, something I'm thinking about is maybe holding initiative, heading out of lane 3, depending on what's going on over there, obviously, in order to perhaps play a consumable or maybe a no accident here on Zeus, something like that. No accident doesn't do anything here. No cards here. Nothing's going to happen. Alright, Savage Wolf is obviously a bad play here. Gets no value, just dies to Keith. Nothing available for Sir Action Slacks. Would surprise me if anything happens. Good news is that initiative is on the side of the challenger. He gets a chance to do something useful here. Unfortunately for him, with the way the creep spawned, did not get any money, which means he doesn't have access to a consumable here. That's a little rough, possibly, although, had he had the money, a fair and viable choice would be to not spend it and hope to draw payday and that kind of thing. This is really interesting. Let's pause. Okay, he didn't do it. But we should talk about where we want these things to deploy, ideally. So, couple of different options. I definitely think this is wrong if he decides to go there. The reason being is that this is going to be a 3-wide board. If Chen comes here, a 2-wide board if it doesn't. Either way, Earthshaker cannot go in front of the 1 or 2 spots that are guaranteed to be the ones filled by a play from the challenger. So as a result, your odds of getting Earthshaker here are really high. And he does not have access to his passive yet. Maybe you're looking to taunt a minion here if you draw Ventriloquy and the minion spawns there, but like the odds of these things happening are not super good. So by playing Earthshaker here, what are you really hoping to accomplish, right? Like, there aren't any cards at 5 mana you're looking to play in mid lane. You're already doing really good in this lane, and an Earthshaker play here is likely to go uncontested and allow you to develop more spells. You don't really need to spend a lot of time keeping your tower healthy by sacrificing Earthshaker, especially on 5 mana. Although he does have Echo Slam and Thunder Gods. That's kind of interesting. Maybe sacrificing it here could be useful. That could be the plan Sir Action Slacks is going for. I would still personally consider playing it here. You have tower health advantage. It's kind of weird. I'm going to factor in the handicap to the analysis, by the way. but by having the tower health advantage on the side of the challenger, it's actually a tougher call, in my opinion, to sacrifice units in order to get access to your 7 mana here, because you're still just going to get wrecked in the mid lane over the course of the next 2 turns, and the proportion of your tower health that is getting wrecked is really high. So you're only buying yourself a little time, whereas playing in your side lanes and trying to really dominate / overwhelm those can be more useful in ultimately killing your opponent's towers, I think. Chen being played in the middle lane, looking at the challenger's options, seems okay. I think that this lane doesn't really need the help, and there's not a lot that you're afraid of on 5 mana that would necessitate help being deployed here this turn. You're going to have Lycan next turn to respond to a 6 mana thing that could happen here, like Eclipse, so that's cool. Chen being played here is interesting. It does not die to Keith. You could definitely start looking to do things in the right lane. But I don't dislike playing it in the middle lane. It does not die to Prism Black either, which is nice. I think Challenger has options here. He is not as much in the hot seat, he's not as much behind. Oh, they weren't finished deploying. Okay, well, cool. So what you're seeing here is what I suggested, and something that I thought was fine. I definitely think there was no need for that blue hero in the middle lane from Sir Action Slack, so solid play. Echo Slam and Foresight are the draws for Sir Action Slack. Foresight is a reasonable play here just because you want to do something with your mana, and you have Fighting Instincts to play in the right lane, which you can't play here, so it's worth considering doing that. No Accident, though, does come out. Good thing that Initiative was held. The Traveler's Cloak played here would have protected against that by keeping Zeus out of the range of that. This pathing is interesting. Definitely not good that the Luna is just getting pathed into here. It doesn't punish the Challenger at all. Like, he's still pushing 11 damage from these 2 creeps, and it had already got in work last turn, and you might as well cash in here. Potion of Knowledge is the first thing I do for Sir Action Slacks here. Just get some more information, get some more options available to him, see what he draws. Pillager. That's cool. I actually think that's a really good draw this turn. Traveler's Cloak obviously good also. Yep, that's all good. All good stuff. Very heavy green hand for the Challenger. Doesn't have anything he can really do here. Again, had Chen played here, maybe that would have been solid for that reason. And super smart Red Mist Pillager. Let's talk about that. Not often do you necessarily want to play Red Mist Pillager on 5, but when you're against this black deck and they're on 5 mana, the only thing they could have an answer for, if I recall the list correctly, is No Accident. You've already seen one of those. What are the odds he has a second? Not super high. There's no pathing, changing card like New Orders that he could have access to, not even in the red colors anyway, he's in black. So yeah, that was a really, really nice Red Mist Pillager. It puts a lot of heat here, and it maybe encourages this Lycan to go into this lane next turn just to deal with that. We'll have to see. But I like that play. This is an interesting lane. Let's break this one down a little bit. Savage Wolf is not a bad play here. Because it gains 2 every turn, it stays out of range of this creep permanently, so you're not at risk of it dying to that. And it begins to develop your board a little bit. I want to talk about these 3 things dying in a second, because it is a little interesting. Whenever you have creeps trading like this, you're just compressing the lane, right? Because everything moves in. And that is not really useful for either player. It doesn't change the relative positions other than if you have something that benefits its neighbors directly, which these decks don't right now. But something that maybe Sir Action Slacks could consider doing if they want to keep their board as wide as possible, which is a really, like, if you're playing Red Mist Pillager, you'd like your board to be wide, right? Because then eventually a spot like this is really appealing as a place to play it, and forces something like a Savage Wolf trade. It's not very equitable mana-wise, but if you make them play first, play as Red Mist Pillager here. It's really strong, so that's quite nice. It is worth noting maybe that this Red Mist Pillager here, although I like it, and I think it's solid, and it stops the challenger from committing more than is okay for Sir Action Slacks to other lanes. It is worth noting that had he waited until this lane to play it, it would have enabled him to do exactly that, potentially. Especially with the initiative being on the side of the challenger. There's a reasonable chance that a Savage Wolf goes here in the first turn, and then you Red Mist Pillager here. And even if it paths like this, you're super happy, right? Because you've killed off a card for free. It didn't even kill the creep. So maybe that would have been a better play. That could have been solid, but I think this was fine. Mists doesn't really do anything here. That's one advantage of playing Chen in the previous lane that we didn't get a chance to talk about, because I think Mist was drawn this turn. But being able to Mists into this lane would have been pretty solid too. I think this is better, though, considering that Earthshaker was likely to go into the right lane. Wow, that Mists is really interesting. So, inverse to the idea of not fighting the dead lane, there's also a certain amount of not wanting to fight too much in a lane you've already won. And against a red-blue deck that runs Red Mist Pillager on 5, not playing a creep here to stop the board from getting too wide, it's a little scary to me. I'd say that was definitely a misplay. I'd say Savage Wolf here, much more likely to be useful. Very few useful tempo things that could be done in response by Action Slacks. Like if there's a new orders and you did this to the Savage Wolf here, you're still happy. I mean, you burned a new orders, stopping a bunch of damage going on your tower. Like this whole 8 goes away. It's blocking 2, blocking 6. Stops the board from going any wider too, because if he plays 1 mana for new orders, you don't have 5 mana for a pillager. Yeah, weird play. Also worth noting is whenever this happens, that can be bad for this player more than anything, because it enables that slot to be a guaranteed deploy for something if minions spawn the right way. Worth considering. Let's look at gold. So this is the Econ ramp deck. You do want to save a certain amount of gold. One thing that I will say is that I think some analysis I've seen suggests that saving for big rev tells is the main way that you would win with a deck like this. I disagree. It's much more valuable to kind of try and gradually thin your item deck of this garbage and get to your Horn of the Alphas and win that way. Although a somewhat different consideration is that against red-blue control, if you go for that play, that line with your deck, if you're playing to that win condition of Horn of the Alpha, they thrive in the late game, right? And it's actually quicker to Revtel on 5 after you luckily kill some heroes and get some money than it is to thin your deck and buy your horns. So depending on the matchup, maybe my general statement is not accurate, but I think generally speaking, the most powerful thing this deck can do is get a Horn of the Alpha. The second most powerful thing this deck could do is get Apotheosis Blade on Rex. And you do not accomplish those things by focusing too much on your Revtels. So if you go and build this deck once the beta comes out or once you get into the game, keep in mind that Revtel can be a trap in certain matchups. Also worth noting, 3 gold here. Keep your eye out for Consumables if you're this player, if you're the challenger. Definitely would not have bought the Keenfolk plate. I think that's probably the option that was most incorrect on that shop. The reason being it doesn't thin your deck to get you to your win conditions, which would be the reason why you would spend gold on something you don't necessarily want from your main shop, and it doesn't provide the immediate tempo boost that a consumable could. I forget what consumable he had. Let's jump back as well. Drawing a card, pretty good when you're very heavy on green. Maybe you want some more flexibility. Plus, where is this armor going to be utilized? It might be okay here. But on 6, you're not experiencing Echo Slam or Thunder Gods. All the Thunder Gods don't matter. Piercing. Here, doesn't do anything against Eclipse, which is your biggest fear. Yeah. I don't think that accomplishes much for you. Was this Town Portal Scroll new? Is this going to disappear in a second? I might have missed that earlier. Yeah, so that was a Town Portal Scroll for 3. Just updated slowly. Oh, sorry, we didn't talk about deployment. Most important thing. Lycan going in the left lane, kind of overkill, to be honest. Gets the most value out of your random mists, but what this plays against is Eclipse, right? Because Luna has been on the field for 3 turns, about to be 4. It'll be a 5-charge Eclipse, 10, 13, 17, 21, 5 by 3 is 15, so there's a chance that, like, Riley survives, there's a chance these 2 minions will live on 1 health, because you're eating a lot here, maybe. Had that not gone there, 3, 7, 11, everything dies, right? But, this is on 5, you can come back there later. The lane which is hotly contested is right lane, right? 3 green heroes in 1 lane, not great. But equally valid would have been a play here, hoping to hit Red Mist. Definitely, left lane is... wrong is a strong word if you think you're not going to be able to get back to a position where you deal 5, but you're going to be able to get back to a position where you deal 5, especially with Kuzma. So, this was the only wrong place for Lycan, I would say. I think mid was your best play, even though, and this is what I was talking about earlier, like a lot of people have been saying, hey, you're losing this lane, you're not going to win this lane, get out of that lane, right? But think about what happens if you play Lycan mid here, with the hand that is here. 2 really solid options. Coup de Grace Bristle Black, right? Keen Folk Plate here, seeing as you went for it. Traveler's Cloak would have done the same thing, but thinned your deck. Keep that in mind. Even though there's a use for this, there would have been an equivalent use for Traveler's Cloak. Right? So, this wasn't better. But, so either you keep initiative, you coup de grace here, you, therefore, if Lycan spawn here, sure, another Red Mist spawns, but it's going to spawn one of these 3, big whoop. Or, if Lycan spawns here, you could use a Truth to Power here. Your tower takes 8, you go down to 8, and he can't do anything. 8 is not that scary. Like, you gotta use your life as a resource in this as much as any other card game. And he could have come back in middle lane by that play. So, when people talk about the dead lane, a dead lane is not dead forever. You know, creeps are gonna spawn, changing the dynamics. Worth considering that placement. And in this case, I think it would have been the best placement. In this lane, it similarly protects against Eclipse as it does here, but in a lane that you care more about protecting against Eclipse. It also either kills a creep, and you still block this because you have a creep spawning here, or it blocks this and doesn't die. You're not afraid of Time of Triumph, protects, as I said earlier, against the Eclipse. Either one of these 2 lanes is a good play. I think here, in the middle lane, is the best option. It would have given you the ability to shut down this Red Mist Pillager, one way or the other, either this turn or the next. Alright, let's move on. Yeah, payday when you just spend 8 on a Keen Folk feels bad, man. That is kind of rough. Let's see what was drawn. Looks like it was 1 Ventriloquy, 1 Echo Slam. So now you're definitely overcommitted here. You're not even protecting against something super useful. Savage Wolf here kills the tower. That is definitely the right play. He's going to see it, which is good. Town Portal Scroll. That seems good. Yeah, I like that play. The only thing that's bad about the Town Portal Scroll there, which is worth talking about, is you've given the option for initiative to be retained by the challenger. As we know, heading into the next lane, initiative is key there. Coup de grace or truth to power, well, would have been truth to power had Chen stayed, but coup de grace is live, isn't live in the third lane. You're against a black hero on 6. If he wants to be both mana efficient and also possibly redeem himself in a lane he's losing and keep his tower at 16 versus 8, a coup de grace could happen. Odds of having coup de grace on 6 mana, not terrible. I think possibly. Also keep in mind, by teleporting out, the more I think about this, the more I think TP here is wrong. So teleporting out means that you're leaving this board with no response in hand, like you don't have a conflagration to play from the right lane to left to start clearing these things out. Thunder Gods kills this next turn, only if you keep initiative and play a blue hero here and Thunder Gods before coup de grace comes in, which is a lot of ifs. Once this goes down, that's 18 damage plus 7 next turn here, 10 in total, so 28 damage. Challenger with that TP scroll has put this tower on a 3-ish turn clock. Actually worse because of mists. So this play by Sir Action Slacks to TP away Luna is kind of bold, and you'd rather they spend a coup de grace to get you out of a lane you're already kind of losing, and stop them from defending more. I forget if Luna was going to die. Let's check that real quick. It matters, but not a lot. Wasn't going to die. So that's important to realize too. But you'd rather resources be spent, right? Like you'd rather burn cards from your opponent's hand to accomplish something that you wanted to accomplish anyway. You still get Luna back in 2 turns, and you don't necessarily need her next turn because you have Zeus coming in, so you're going to have live blue mana anyway. What this does that is unique to the TP play is it gives both blue heroes next turn, so a blue hero can go left lane and middle lane, and then you can like Thunder Gods, or Echo Slam here and then Thunder Gods. But again, only assuming you have initiative, and possibly if the challenger was smart, they would keep initiative so they could coup de grace the single blue hero here. Again, pressuring the Ancient and possibly being able to win that way. That was a long turn analysis. Sorry for that, guys. There's a lot to talk about. Hopefully you don't hate the length of these turns. I think it's important. Oh, and also worth noting real quick, there's another way that deploying blue left and going X-Slam is bad if initiative is held by the challenger. Hand to God. So, killing the Ancient is a reasonable win condition for the challenger at this point. That was an interesting one. So let's talk about why that was kind of sketch. Firstly, Viscous Navel Goo is a card, as we saw it being played. Like, this can just be counteracted and have her still die. Whereas if you coup here, there's nothing that Sir Action Slacks can do to guarantee this kill. And now, like, there is no hope for this lane. There was hope for this lane heading into turn 6 mana, but there's no hope for this lane anymore for the challenger. Not the end of the world. Like, he might realistically be looking to win another way. This isn't unilaterally bad. I mean, it's worse than it should have been, but it's not unilaterally bad in the sense that like he's condemned himself to lose the game from this play. It just means that now he's more reliant on doing things in his other lanes when there was no reason to give out mid lane. Yeah, and especially if you're going to do that anyway, then it is obviously wrong. Now you have a board of 2 red mists, and you got no reasonable answer right now. That's a scary spot to be in. Let's take a look at this lane. Looks like maybe something is being played here. As I pause. Scoot back. No, it's just being weird. Okay. Ventriloquy on this unit. It's probably the only reasonable play for Sir Action Slacks. And he has initiative. If he wants to hold initiative, he could sacrifice his blue hero here. And I think that's fine too. It depends on whether he thinks he's more realistically winning this lane, or this lane with a good Echo Slam. Those are your 2 options. You can play to either one. Ventriloquy here, assuming no response here, is the play that keeps you in this lane. No play is the play that keeps you in this lane. Sorry, this lane. The only play that is absolutely wrong is Fighting Instincts. It does nothing. So hopefully Sir Action's Lax doesn't play that. Yep, nice. I like that. Truth to Power is a really bad move here. And he's going to see that that's a bad move. Because, so, also worth noting, I know I said Fighting Instincts was bad. It's only bad if you do it first. Because if there's a silence, then silence here stops you from ventriloquy, and maybe a path opens up for Challenger to play more heavily in the right lane. Probably it still wouldn't have happened, but this is definitely the right order, because it's more committed to what he's trying to accomplish in winning the right lane. An interesting play in this next deployment phase, as we pause and look at the items, would be for both blue heroes to go here. That would actually be really good. We'll get to that in a second. If you're watching along at home, try and think about why that might be a good play. It's a lot better than you might think. A lot better. Okay, item-wise, we got 11 gold here for the Challenger. I would not buy anything. You're holding on to Payday. You're probably going to coup de grace hero this turn in this lane and hope, unless he plays both blue heroes here. So actually, what I'm just realizing is if Sir Action Slacks doesn't play both heroes here, then the game is over. Let's talk about why real quick. So currently, it's kind of hard to read this number with how big everything is right now, but that's 29 damage, okay? That's before Mists triggers. So when Mists adds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus any amount that could happen with creep spawns, so either 6 or 7 plus 2 or 4, that's going to put it to the point where over 2 turns, if nothing spawns here and blocks the damage, then the Challenger just wins, right? Because he's going to deal 80 over 2 turns. And if you look at the spawns, this turn he's got 2 blue heroes to work with. The turn afterwards he's only got a red hero. The reason why that's important is because if he only plays 1 blue hero here, because of the black mana, coup de grace is just going to kill that hero, right? You know, you've got initiative on the Challenger side. If it pans out that way, then there can't be any Echo Slam response here. So, I mean, it depends a little bit on the minions and pathing, but there's really good odds that within 2 turns, this lane just wins. So let's unpause and take a look at where these spawns are going to come out from the minions first. First things first. I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit. Yeah, okay. So, both of the minions spawned in these 2 lanes. If we don't see a double... Whoa, okay. Hang on. Let's pause. So, this play, like playing Luna in mid lane, if you think that the opponent doesn't have coup de grace, maybe that's okay. But not playing a single blue hero here is a really questionable choice, because you just have no possible way of dealing with this board over 2 turns. Like, next turn is just a red hero. The only out you're leaving yourself is to Thunder God's Wrath from lane 3, and you're only gonna get to do that effectively and still have a chance of like winning this lane at some point if you hold initiative as Sir Action Slacks, which means he's kind of relying on the Challenger to play Payday or an item in the left lane. There's no items here, or something else he draws, right? This is probably a game-losing play. Like, so let me rewind real quick. I said earlier it might be a good idea to play 2 blue heroes here before I caught that it's probably the only way to win. But the reason why you have to play 2 and why you can't play 1, and it's funny because I was talking about the dead lane earlier, right? And this is the best example of it. This is the deadest lane possible. But you're going to lose the game if you don't do something here. If you only play 1 blue hero here, right? Initiative is on the Challenger. He's got black mana coup de grace. If you play 2 here, it actually forces a Hand of God, right? Which also means there's no Hand of God here unless he draws another one. Hand of God keeps all these creatures alive for 1 turn. 7 health and 12 health, or 12 and 7, right? That keeps these guys alive in this lane because Hand of God is the only play that can possibly happen here. That actually matters and stops like an Echo Slam from clearing the board. So you're guaranteed then the following turn to have 2 blue heroes here and be able to deal with this board. It's like 3 layers deep, but let's watch how it pans out. I have a feeling you'll see what I mean as we move along here a little bit. Okay, that doesn't do anything. Iron Fog doesn't do anything. So yeah, 37 this turn with no creeps blocking. It's going to be 43 next turn with no creeps spawning. Definitely don't play anything this turn. Maybe, so like a crazy read. This would be pretty insane. A crazy read isn't this. It would be playing Hand of God so that Thunder Goddess doesn't kill Riley and you maximize your chances of pushing lethal next round. Like, that'd be insane, but that's not going to happen. Also, Payday definitely should have been played there. He had 11 gold. Doubling it would have been 22, and then he got 3 from Iron Fog. That's 25. That means you get to buy your win condition items. So, mistakes on both sides in these last couple of rounds when the tensions are high. You know, it makes sense. Don't blame Sir Action Slacks for not playing Thunder Gods here. The reason why it's better to save it is because he has Zeus in this lane. Oh, let's pause real quick. So Zeus in this lane means that Thunder God actually wipes out the Chen, even though he's on 5 health because of the Zeus passive. And because there's no Hand of God, it would kill Riley too, which maybe keeps him alive depending on spawns and pathing in the first lane. Echo Slam might look more appealing here because it actually kills these creeps too. But if you take a look at the damage that's going through regardless, like this is 7 damage that goes through with a Thunder Gods, taking this tower to 12, still very within the realms of killing it, right? It is only, 7 plus 7, 14 plus 2, 16 damage if he Echo Slams. So he doesn't kill the tower. It's not like this is a game win if he Echo Slams. And on top of that, it doesn't deal with the first lane, which you have to deal with, because if you, like, you're going to do one or the other probably. Like, you already passed initiative, you might as well make something happen. And Echo Slam sets it up so that when initiative is held on the following turn by the challenger, I guess it doesn't matter because PA is about to spawn. Yeah, this turn lost the game for Sir Action Slacks. He had to play both Zeus and Luna in the left lane and force the Hand of God, and then next lane get the Echo Slam. Like, there's a lot of things that had to go right for this game to be won by Sir Action Slacks, but that was the line that would have kept him in the game. The game probably would have gone a couple more turns. Honestly, either player could have won, like a Time of Triumph here, next turn, because he cleared the left lane with a Echo Slam, with one of his 2 blue heroes that's alive, so Coup de Grace doesn't lock him out. You know, a second Hand of God probably still doesn't do it with 3 heroes blocking the damage, because he wasn't over by that much. And also you can play Pillager, possibly. He's got a Pillager here, so when he Coup de Grace a blue hero, possibly you just play Pillager to block Riley or something, and then you stay alive. That's rough. Sir Action Slacks got super greedy here this turn. Let's watch it play out. I think at this point in this game, though, I guess there's also the possibility that 2 creeps spawn in the left lane, and if the pathing cards and specific spots that they deploy in, Echo Slam is not the right one. You feel good, Slacks? You shouldn't feel good. Turn that smile upside down. 3 or 4 mistaken plays in a row definitely locked that in. Again, unless there's crazy creep spawns. 1 creep spawn helps. I don't know if it's going to be enough. Like, it needs to block Riley, and then the challenger needs to think that, yeah, that's not it. Okay, Coup de Grace here, win the game. Wow, this is actually a super interesting game. I think there was a lot of moments where really interesting things happened. To be honest, this Mists ended up being a game-winning play over a long enough course of time. I still would argue that it was wrong. right? Because had Slacks just deployed 2 blue heroes, like, you saw what would have happened, right? Like, PA this round would have had to be deployed in the 3rd lane, but there was another Echo Slam, there was a Thunder God's Wrath, there was Time of Triumph. The tower would have been on, 9 health. So, 3 heroes, I'm sorry, it would have been 2, because Zeus wouldn't have been there. 2 heroes, 8 damage, he's 1 off, as if 1 creep doesn't push through, right? Like, probably this turn Sir Action Slacks could have won, had he seen that the only way to stay alive was to play 2 heroes in the left lane. So that was a pretty crazy game, guys. I'm glad I sort of lucked into that one as my first analysis. Artifact is a hard game. There are a lot of choices to make, and I do not blame either player for any of the ones that I think they made. You know, Mists worked out, even though I thought it was a mistake, but yeah, it's going to be interesting once the game fully comes out and everyone starts getting more practice under their belt. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and a comment, maybe subscribe. I'd love to do more of these if it makes sense. And I plan on doing a couple more where maybe I get guests on to talk about their games at PAX. And if you're one of the players at PAX that had your game on stage recorded, or maybe you recorded some footage on your phone or something of a game that you played, I'd love to analyze that too. So I'm going to put an email in the description for you to hit up if you want me to do analysis. This video was incredibly long, so I will try and keep things a little more succinct and have better brevity next time. But as you could see, like, there were so many lines you had to investigate, and at any point a small mistake can really cost you it. So, alright, that's episode 1 done. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you next time.